Welcome to the Think Fitness Life podcast, where we bring the mind, body, and gym together so you can improve your health, increase performance, and live your best life. For more information, visit thinkfitnesslife.com. Here are your hosts, Matt Gluckman and Eric Menchi.
Welcome back, folks. Matt Gluckman here with the Think Fitness Life podcast, and we have Eric in the hot seat today. And for those who don't know Eric Menchi is the co-host of the Think Fitness Life podcast. He has been training for 8 years. He got his bachelor's in exercise science, and then he went on to get his master's in strength and conditioning. He is postural restoration trained and precision nutrition level 1 certified. He worked with D1 athletes at Northeastern and Boston University, and he's the Boston native, so that's why we're going to get him to talk about Bill Belichick and Nick Saban in the documentary that came out, The Art of Coaching. So, Eric, go ahead and tell us a little bit of brief synopsis on what people can expect when watching this documentary.
So with this documentary, you can expect obviously a lot of football talk. That's implemented in both of their lives, and that's kind of where they stem the story from, right? Their passion for football and what makes them great. Now, but on the other side, the non-football side, we're going to talk about what makes them great and why they did this. I mean, we're talking about the two most respectable coaches, one in the pro level and one at the college level, to almost ever do this job and why they're so successful each and every season. And basically it goes through their strategy, their tactics of how and why they do what they do every year, day in, day out, to get to where they want to be, and how they are so successful compared to the rest of the league and all the other coaches that have tried and not gotten there. It's a very fascinating, interesting documentary. They're two friends that kind of found each other at a young age, and their coaching careers curved and went one way. They were together at one point in the NFL, then they separated. They played against each other. They've coached against each other. So it's a very interesting, well done documentary, and it really dives into the winning attitude and mindset that professional athletes have and professional coaches have, and this drive to be better and to win.
And what's interesting is there's one for our listeners out there. Nick Saban has 7 Super Bowl titles, and Belichick has 6. It's pretty fascinating. That's some good longevity and good success.
Yeah, I mean,
so go ahead and tell us a little bit about what makes them great, what makes them stand out, what makes them so effective at what they do.
So they're not your average coaches, right? You kind of go through the motions. They've had a burning passion for football most of their lives. You probably could say all of their lives. They've been around the game. They've coached in the game. Then they realize that what it takes to be at the top level is a lot. Now, they just didn't get tossed into this top level. It took years of being a GA, being assistant coaches, working their way up, grad assistant. So basically like the lowest on the sideline, the totem pole of coaching, right? So you're not really a big influence. Going to small D1 schools, D2 schools, working your way up, getting to the pros, back and forth. It took some time to get there. But in that time, they both developed, and I think everyone's heard this, the do your job mentality, the do your job title, which actually kind of came when they were in Cleveland. It came out of Cleveland when they were together. They kind of brought that mentality to that team. And I think that's one of the big things is just doing your job day in and day out is going to breed success no matter what. And whether it's, you're doing a minuscule thing for the team or a big thing, is like every player needs to do their job in order to be successful. And if they do their job and know their job, then put it together with 11 people on a field, success should come. And they said with who people who maybe who don't do their jobs, or they think, okay, if I got to worry about this job, that job. No, just focus on what you're solely there to do, and the other person will do that. And it kind of takes over. And it builds that mentality of, okay, I step in the building today. I know exactly what I need to do my job perfectly, right? Things will come up where I might get thrown out of rhythm, right? When I'm working at the gym, I might get thrown out of rhythm here by a person, by a client, but that shouldn't deter me from doing my job and doing my job 100%. So I think anyone can take that model, that mentality, and build it into what they're going to do in life, whether it's their work, their family, their education, whatever it is that they have a drive to do. If you kind of wake up and say, okay, this is what my job today, boom, focus on that, repeat, repeat, repeat.
And no, I just want to cycle back really quick because I misspoke earlier when I said Super Bowl. I meant to say national championships. Nick Saban has 7 national championships in college football, and Belichick has 6 national championships in the pros, so Super Bowl titles, and that's the most out of any coach in the NFL. But I think it's really interesting that process of every man doing his job definitely relates to a sport like football, where you have 11 guys doing 11 different tasks, and kind of like you said, just like ensuring that they're doing the best job that they can ensures for the best success of the squad and the team to have that cohesion and be that successful dynasty, so to speak. So it's just really cool to see how that that stage is set, that atmosphere is set from the top of the chain, from the coach saying, "Do your job, guys."
And with that, the coaches, they're purely responsible for, the whole team. So in the documentary, they would say, if I put the team in a bad position, a losing position, or not the best position to win, they said that was on me. I'm their leader. So like you were saying and have said earlier, they're taking that sole ownership of that team, right? It's things go bad. Okay, I'm the leader. It lies on me because I should have seen that coming, right? I should have been there or done something better and put you in a better position to win. And we're not here to say they never lost. I mean, some of these teams have lost. They've lost bad. They've taken hard losses, but they figured out in the system the way to coach players and to teach players how to have that fortitude and to have that model. Okay, this is what you need to do in each play. That's where you need to be, where you need to line up. That over time, those repetitions of getting it in is just driving excellency, right? So it's not about like if you can
Yeah,
do one rep perfect, right? In the gym, you can do one rep perfect. That's great. A lot of people have hit 1 RMs, but it's more like, can you do 10 reps perfect? Can you do rep over and over? So basically, you do a rep perfect until you get it wrong, and then you figure, okay, what happened when this went wrong, right? Then you learn from it because eventually something will go wrong, and that's what we learn from.
yeah,
And it's very hard for the human mind to have that kind of adversity or change because it doesn't want to. It wants to have this, I did it perfect, positive feedback, which is good, but it needs to also learn from a negative feedback and be like, okay, I can't, if this negative happens, I can't just bottom out and be like, well, that's it. I need to learn from it,
right.
come back and be better.
And that's definitely a big misstep that I see in like I guess youth athletics and parents of youth athletes is they're so focused on the win of that day, right? The game they came to watch or the tournament they came to show
Mm-hmm.
up at. They're not thinking of that bigger picture of is he on the right path? Is he executing good skills? Is he doing his job right? Is he trying his hardest and learning from this stuff? Because if you lose your cool and you get down on yourself for a loss, then it's really a true loss. But if you look at it as just it is what it is and you learn from it, it's not a loss. If the goal is for a total net more wins than losses, you're innately going to have losses anyway. So you have to treat every poor rep or loss or breakdown in team structure as a learning
Right.
opportunity and growth out of that, because then you're really just learning as you go, and you're getting better, and you're growing. And I guess one of the quotes that apply that came to mind is, amateurs practice something until they get it right, where professionals practice something until they don't get it wrong.
Essentially, yeah.
And would you say that their diligence to that? I mean, would you say that the documentary at least is trying to portray that that's why they seem to stay on top so much? It's just their level of repetition, 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 and drilling, drilling, drilling.
Yeah, and they showed clips on the film of if a play didn't go right, they would rerun it, and they would rerun it until they got it right, and then they keep running it until they basically
Mm-hmm.
mastered it. Right, so you run it
Mm-hmm.
right once, perfect, but you want to almost run it so many times where if you close your eyes, you could probably do it with your eyes closed. Sort of that
Just drill it into your
exactly,
autonomic
and
nervous system.
with everything that we as humans do, the brain kind of feeds in. It's the same thing. Well, first time you've done a challenging exercise or first time you've done like a challenging math problem, it's going to take you some time. You get it, but you're not going to get good at it unless you repeat it, repeat it, repeat it, and have your brain go through the motion. Same thing with like playing an instrument, right? You learn a song on a piano. You have to repeat that so your brain knows exactly where your hands are going to go, your fingers are going to go, your feet rhythm is going to go. And I think that's a big thing within this, a big teaching point that the documentary had that I think people should take away from. Now, it's great football and great education, but I think this document has more to take away from on like the mental aspect of coaching and life than it does football. Saying that
Mm.
whatever we're doing in life, it's okay to fail. It's okay to screw things up. The brain needs that. If not, it doesn't know how to fail. And when it does fail, it doesn't know how to learn from that. And I think that's an interesting kind of place sometimes you get put in because as it's gone, Saban and sometimes Belichick too, they've gone undefeated through seasons. And if you maybe ask them, they said that might not be the best thing because as you go undefeated, now you start to get
Comfortable.
exactly this like complacent feeling. Okay, we're undefeated. Where sometimes they say if we get one loss, it kind of
Your foot's still on the
pulls
gas.
you into check a little bit, saying, "Oh, okay, we need to go." And I see this happen in the gym all the time, and in other sports I played, people get complacent. Other teammates that I've had, like, oh, they're good at this, they've reached that, and then they kind of hit this cruise control button, and it doesn't really get them anywhere. And when it comes time where they get another adversity or a wall, they just kind of don't know what to do, or they don't have the aptitude to get over that. And I think that's a big thing, a big mental thing in life. And the brain loves comfort, right? It wants comfort, it wants ease, but at the same time, to draw new maps and new processes, we need to be challenged. We need to learn. So it's good to go fail, but you have to be able to learn and not fear failure. I think nowadays we have this big fear of failure in society, and it's almost overcoming that people aren't challenging enough to go kind of get close to failure or even find it and then be like, okay, now how do I learn from it?
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Yeah, it's a big
that's
thing
hard to teach.
because you got to try your hardest in order to be a true data point to learn from, whether it's you did something right or you did something poorly. And a lot of people don't even have that discipline to give it their
Right.
all. So we got, but back to that point about resiliency. What are some other, I guess we could say, transferable skills or characteristics that the document's portraying?
So another big characteristic that the film had and is just the the ability to how to put this the ability to understand what it takes to drive a group of people to one end goal. So we're talking mental toughness, mental fortitude. So you have all the coaching aspects of it, but a lot in their programs in the maybe the off seasons, Saban knows this a lot, is building in this mental toughness mindset, right? That and he uses like he'll say, "What does it take to break you?" whether that's what does it take to break your focus, what does it take to break your kind of willpower, your drive, what is going to be the thing that deters you from keep going to the goal that you want. And he
Interesting.
kind of gets you to a point where he's going to help you find that, right? He's going to find that breaking point for you, and then he's going to teach you, okay, you got to go past that. And mental toughness, I think this is one of the hardest things that people endure in life. Like whether it's, roadblocks that they hit during school, studying, exercise, relationships, whatever, right? There's always places where that brain just wants to stop, and it's like, we're done, right? We're fearful, we don't want to keep going. And then
Well, there's a level to which they were told to let your baby just cry, and I think that we've progressed to a point where we just coddle, and we've robbed our toddlers, babies, children's of just letting it all out
right.
and failing appropriately. And it's interesting though, because it almost sounds like one of the, I guess, skills, kind of along with resiliency, is being able to kind of recognize your own weaknesses. It almost
Oh
sounds
yes.
like, and then from there, um, like by recognizing your own weakness, you can start to overcome it and strengthen your mental toughness. And but then you said also about the ability to motivate a group a little bit too. So, is it talking about that was the skill of the coach, or that was the skill of the individual athlete to like admit his weakness?
It's a little bit of both, right? So you're getting the athlete to admit his weakness. That's the end goal, because if you break them down and get them uncomfortable and get them frustrated and realize their weaknesses, okay, they realize it, but now you say, okay, you have to deal with that, put it in the past, let it go, and you now have to do your job in that setting.
Hmm.
So yeah, you're coaching the individual, and then as a whole, now you have to coach the team together to do it.
That's so interesting. Do you think that because Brady became very
Mm-hmm.
dominant, right? But he kind of started off as like a fourth string guy, kind of like how you were saying that both these coaches started off as like a general assistant, like an intern at the coaching level. But then Belichick and Brady had a falling out. Do you think some of that came from Belichick maybe trying to make Brady tick and Brady just taking like offense to it because he's kind of like unbreakable?
I don't know. This is kind of like the biggest question we have going. Whether
So,
because
yeah,
for
I jumped
no
ahead.
no
I
no,
jumped.
I
Go
mean
ahead.
this is basically, so we've had 20 years of Brady and Belichick. The systems worked. It lined up. It worked. At what point? I don't know. I think that some part of the system started not working as efficiently as Brady might have wanted it to. And instead of waiting for that system to come back around and be like, okay, this is going to start turning in, I think he wanted that system to come quicker. My opinion. So then there's a little falling out of what players do we get? Do we draft? I think it all comes down to that. I think it becomes more of a monetary thing. Like,
Yeah,
oh, we can't afford this, we can't do that, the salary cap. And I think that kind of started separating the systems. Because if you watch Brady's stuff, his he follows the same system. Disciplined, hard work, that work ethic. I think that goes a long way. I
that perfectionism.
Right.
Like he's
So it's
just
like,
trying to drill it, drill it, drill it until he just understands it second
so it
nature.
comes
Yeah,
together. So at some point there must have been some sort of divide of what individuals want, right? What their end term goal is. Obviously it was the same, but it was probably not the same avenue they're looking at. And I think that's one thing of adversity that kind of comes along.
yeah, yeah. Just kind of the nature of the beast a
Mm-hmm.
little
And
bit.
as you saw with this year with the Patriots, I mean they weren't really that good. It was a different year. I think a couple
Yeah,
of years he'll turn that around and get more buy into the system. Now, also, I think it might be tough
how good Brady.
if you have a couple players that start going against the system. Now, this could be the other side of it, right? Brady started going with his own system, his own practices, his own workout. He started bringing players. So now instead of being a team, we're doing separate workouts, separate things, and now we're trying to come together. And I think that kind of mesh of bringing in a different professional to kind of tell like what the coach and the medical staff's doing is wrong and different. I think that kind of butts heads. So maybe that was a part of the approach where it's like, okay, well, if you have your system and it's working, that's fine. But if you don't want to apply it to this system, then it kind of goes counterintuitive.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that can happen. And with like the documentary, they said with NFL players, it's a little bit different than college players. NFL players, they get paid. The owners are paying them to be there. So they kind of have a say. They get a paycheck. In college, you're kind of playing to get paid, right? You're trying to get to that level. So the coach has a little more influence over the team. So you can kind of get a little bit more out of college players than some pros. And this is a very interesting thing kind of going into in mindset of athletes is you work so hard young through high school and then college, you're always trying to work. But when you get to the top, some of these athletes get paid and they're just like, okay, I get paid. I call the shots. I coast. I get complacent. And nowadays we could throw out a bunch of names. And on the flip side, there's athletes that don't do that. We have your Jordans. You can say Tom Brady. Some of these athletes that are just, I want to be the best no matter what. Yeah. And they're just going to go and find a way to be the best no matter what. And I think that's a hard thing for young kids to see. It's like once you get paid $30 million, okay, I'm not going to go work out as much. I'm not going to really care, kind of go do my life. I mean, hey, they earned it, but that's where for me it's a little bit of a divide with some of these professional athletes once they get into that mindset. And that's not bringing it back. That's not a good mindset to have. And people can get that. Ordinary people can get that. You get the job you always wanted, you get complacent. Boom. And then people kind of coast for a bit until something happens. And I can say you're going to experience it a little bit, right? We're trainers, so you hit a certain quota, you hit a certain number, you're like, oh, okay, I hit it. You kind of like, you feel that slight urge to be like, I'm good, right? Until you lose one or two or three clients and all of a sudden it drops down. And you're like, oh. So then as you kind of go, you're like, I never can really take that off because once you experience it, that's failure. Experience it. It's like, this is where I need to be.
Yeah, no, it's pretty interesting because I see that. I feel like I see that happen a lot between the college and pros level is you'll get some people in college who are just so dominant that they look so much faster than everyone else in the field, and that they're not being challenged enough. And then they end up kind of, whether it's hotheads or just partying a lot, but it's that lack of applying themselves fully because they're just not being challenged, and they end up in bad situations. Noel Devine was a great running back. Michael Vick's younger brother, although he had some head case problems, he was a great athlete.
Oh, man, I haven't heard that name in years. He was supposed to be unbelievable.
Yeah, and even this guy Chaz Walker out of Utah, these people had amazing stats and amazing on-field performance, but they just, for lack of mentor or whatever, mindset, whatever, they just in a sense kind of coasted and ended up not making it into the pros. Mm-hmm. And it's a shame to see. And just because I want people to be able to kind of take away some stuff today. Obviously everyone should go watch the documentary, but what are some key takeaways from the documentary that people could apply in their lives today?
So saying it is a football documentary doesn't mean you can't take away anything. And I think the biggest thing that people take away or should take away is where do they lack in mental fortitude or mental toughness? So, okay, what's kind of where in their lives can they get broken down and maybe get thrown off that path? The other thing is their daily disciplines, right? Do they have the daily disciplines to kind of go through each and every day and be and do the things that will lead them to what they want to have success in life. And maybe, and in the documentary, it's not like flat out and said that, but they get to that overall purpose of like, these guys will probably coach until they're 80 and probably can't even walk. But this drive for strive for excellence and perfection and, this competition, I think that's what pushes them, right? Winning's great, but then they're like, okay, we won. Where's this next challenge for me? Who can I mold to bring to that next challenge? So I think people, as they look at this, they say, okay, who can they mold? If they have a family, they can mold them. But more importantly, they mold themselves to where they want to be for a challenge and understand where that challenge lies in their life, what might they do to get there, and what they need to do. And I think that's the overall thing, one of the overall things we have here at Think Fitness Life is this mental approach to life. I think is one or the most important aspect, right? Neurology, neurobiology. Our brains, the 6 inches between our ears is like the most important thing. And mentally, if we do not have control of that, that is not a good thing. We will lose control and it will have control of us. And then we're just on some like autopilot.
Mm-hmm. Well, that about wraps us up. For those who you're just tuning in, check out that Belichick Save It documentary. What title one more time?
The Art of Coaching.
Art of Coaching. And yeah, I love the mental side of it. So I hope everyone enjoyed this podcast and stay tuned for more episodes the following weeks. Take care, guys.
If you're ready to make steps towards improving your health or increasing your performance, book a free 30-minute call today by visiting thinkfitnesslife.com.